Alan Ritchson and Brie Larson, they're hanging out in this green screen room that is so egregious.
Dude,
It
I'm like,
looks
what
so
siphon filter
bad.
room are you guys in
It
right
looked like
now?
Cerebral.
Like it's
Cerebral?
yeah,
Cerebro looked better.
Yeah.
Cerebro.
Cerebro. Yeah. That was
right. Cerebro.
Yeah,
Cerebro.
Yeah, Cerebro. Yeah.
It just like it was unreal.
Hello and welcome to the movie podcast review of Fast 10 or Fast X, however you prefer to call it. My name is Daniel. I am one of your hosts today, and joining alongside me today in the passenger seats, of course, it's me, Familia. It's Shahbaz.
Vroom vroom, get out my car.
And Anthony.
I live my life a quarter mile at a time.
I love it.
Oh my god.
If you didn't tell from the name of the movie I said at the very beginning, this is a Fast and the Furious movie. We are reviewing Fast. I just want to remind people, of course,
if you couldn't
saw
tell
the name of the
movie I
episode.
just said.
No, if you didn't remember what I said 10 seconds ago, guess what? It doesn't matter. Like a lot of things in this movie, it doesn't matter. We're going to get to it very soon. Of course, this is the first film in a trilogy of a finale for the Fast and the Furious franchise. I'm just curious, before we get into all of it, do you guys think this really is the end? Again, I know we're getting 3 movies for number 10, which is it's something on its own. But do you really think this is the end of the Fast and the Furious?
You know what? And this is not to spoil what we're going to be talking about in this review, but there's a lot of talk about lineage and your generational, your young ones and everything in this movie that it just kind of feels like we're either going to get like a time jump out of nowhere and all of a sudden it's going to be the children that are going to be carrying on this franchise or something. But no, this doesn't end. Even the red carpet when Vin said this is going to be a trilogy out of nowhere, which still hasn't been confirmed. I guess they're probably waiting for the box office of this one for Universal to officially be like, yeah, that sounds good.
And maybe a director as well too to sign on board as well. Maybe.
I think that's important. Yeah.
That's probably important. That probably would be helpful. Anthony, how about you? Do you think this is the end? Do you think this is the end of the road for the family?
It's not the end. It's the beginning. You know, it took 10
at the 10th film.
10 films to get to the beginning.
Yeah.
But no, I just after watching this one, I feel like they're trying to go. They're kind of giving you a foreshadowing of what's to come, because like a lot of these characters have kids, and those kids grow up to become their parents, and that generation continues what their parents have done. At this point, I just don't know what else they can do.
What can't they do? You know what I mean? I think that's a bigger question that we will answer in our spoiler-free review of Fast 10, because this is the movie podcast. All throughout the week, we have reviews and interviews and all the latest movies and series. I do want to direct your attention to an incredible main episode. I know the main episodes are a little bit few and far between now because we are talking so much to you all the time, whether you're listening to us on podcast feeds or watching us on YouTube. But we dropped a dandy of an episode yesterday. Go check it out. It was a great time. We were in person. We had such incredible energy. And I think we're going to be channeling that energy for the rest of this review because, boy, do we have thoughts on this film. If you're in the car still on the ride watching Fast 10, you know what it's going to be. You're either on board putting on your seatbelts or, you got out a long time ago. But Fast 10 your seatbelts because this is going to be an interesting ride. Of course, Fast 10 is hitting theaters this week, so you'll be able to watch it in theaters on May 19th, playing exclusively in theaters. Of course, I want to say thank you to our friends at Universal Pictures Canada for inviting us to watch it early so we could bring you our review. And I do want to remind you, of course, we will stay spoiler-free in this. We won't reveal anything that happens in the film. We're still trying to make sense of what happened in the film, but any major plot points we won't reveal here. Don't worry. I'm going to kick it over to Anthony because I'd love for him to tell us what this film is all about.
Over many missions and against impossible odds, Dom Toretto and his family have outsmarted, outnerved, and outdriven every foe in their path. Now they confront the most lethal opponent they'll ever face, a terrifying threat emerging from the shadows of the past who's fueled by blood revenge and who is determined to shatter the family and destroy everything and everyone that Dom loves forever and ever. XOXO. Amen, amen, because there's Jesus.
You're spoiling that Jesus is in this movie, Anthony.
Jesus
We said
isn't
no
in this movie.
spoilers.
But
He's
yeah.
in the trailer.
Jesus, it's Vin Diesel. He is Jesus in this film.
You say that we won't spoil, but if you do,
We won't spoil.
If you do listen to our main episode, we are spoiling quite a bit. So just
Well, no. Well, I just want to confirm we didn't spoil.
We
it.
didn't. No,
we
no,
didn't
we
spoil
didn't-
anything.
we didn't break the news.
These are news reports that are out now that we had to, comment on the news.
But are there spoilers in this movie?
no.
Yeah. I mean,
No.
Here there are spoilers. There are
They're car
there
spoilers.
are-
You know,
there are
There's
a
car
lot of-
spoilers. That's the
there-
only spoilers I can think
Anthony
of.
got you there, Shay. Anthony
can't-
got you there. There's a lot of spoilers in this film.
Which we can talk about. If we can talk about
Yeah.
car spoilers, I
We can
just
talk
don't
about
know
car
what I would ruin about this film. I don't know.
Well, there's a bunch of stuff that comes to mind, and obviously character fates and reveals and things like that. But we won't spoil anything because we'll let the Fast and Furious cast spoil it themselves when they probably talk about it very soon.
Well,
But I do want to say, it's interesting because we go back to when Fast and the Furious 9 came out, or F9 or F9, the Fast
Fine.
Saga. Fine. That came out in 2021, right? And we went to go see it in the drive-in or at the drive-in in a car. So we watched this film in a movie theater. A little different experience, but that was definitely something. Those were the days when we really were trying to struggle to make content, but to talk about movies that were coming out. We had to go watch it in a drive-in. Crazy times, right?
yeah, we all got together in my car just to look at the windshield of it, and we're like, "Wow, this is the experience we came for."
Oh my gosh. I like drive-ins, but I think if you're in the back seat,
No,
it's
No.
not meant for back seat.
You got to have a car. You got to have the right car for it. Like we should
Or
have had
or-
an SUV.
Yeah.
where we're sitting.
yeah,
in
we should
the
have
trunk.
a minivan parked backwards with the trunk open, and then
or
you
a
have
truck.
a
Yeah.
truck, pickup
Yeah.
truck, yeah. Shahbaz, I would love for you to kick us off with your first reaction to Fast 10.
I don't know what to say. I don't.
Okay,
I'm,
Anthony, you're up.
I'm at I'm at a loss for words. The movie is loud. The movie is action packed, but it is by far the most ridiculous. And I mean this not because of the stakes or because of the action, but because of just how asinine everything in this movie is. None of it makes sense. None of it is kind of going to the right place. And Daniel, you and I are having this conversation in the car where we talked about, there are a lot of movies that do this. We recently reviewed Pathan, for example, which is a crazy action film that just goes balls to the wall.
Da-da-da-da-da.
There we go.
So you
Catchy
said his
theme
name.
song as well.
Yeah.
But the difference between a movie like that and a movie like Fast X or Fast 10 is that movie is aware of what it is. It knows what it's doing. It knows that it's not being taken seriously. Whereas Fast 10, Fast X really does think it's a serious film. No matter how you want to spin it, you can sit there in the audience and say, oh, no, this movie knows it's being fun. This movie thinks it is changing the course of action film history. And it is just... When I got home, the first thing I did was I took an Advil because I had such a headache from watching this movie. It was just such an overload of the senses. I was laughing at certain points that I'm so confident were not meant to be funny. My jaw was a gap. I was just shocked that this movie was going the way that it was. I don't understand also what was happening in it. I don't know really where the story was going. You have a lot of different characters. You have a lot of different, they've added more and more actors into this franchise and then given them absolutely nothing to do because they're just showing up for some reason and then just moving on to the next scene. This is a collection of scenes kind of just strung together, hoping that it makes sense. But the saving grace for this film, the one you've been hearing all about, is Jason Momoa, who's doing his best impression of the Joker, the Riddler, whatever you want to call it. He is just absolutely insane, and he's the most fun to watch. He's got so many one-liners, so many clips. In fact, he's the only one that knows what this movie is. He's the only one that's willing to be like, this is a stupid film. Let me go ahead and have fun with it. Whereas everybody else is not in the same movie as him. They're acting to him, whereas Momoa is acting to the audience, and I think that's what makes this movie so different. It's a tale of so many different tales and stories and plot
spoilers.
points and spoilers. Like, we're going from character to character, and you forget that these characters are in this movie because you'll go 6 hours without seeing them, and guess what? They're in the exact same place where you left them. They haven't moved. Letty is still in this position. Tej and Roman and Ramsey and Han, they're still in the exact same spot where we left them last. So their characters haven't progressed at all from where we last saw them. There's a lot more which I'm gonna let you guys get into as well, but my God, like, it's too much.
It's a lot. It's a lot. And, I'm curious, this film, famously went through a lot of production issues. We had Justin Lin, who really is the shepherder of this Fast and Furious franchise through its best days, with Tokyo Drift, with Fast and Furious, with Fast 5, with 6. He really saw the series through its best films. Left very early on into this film. Was it like the first day or the second day? He was gone. And a few weeks went by before, again, it's all kind of hazy now, but there was a amount of time where Fast did not have a director, but they were shooting different scenes, and then Louis Leterrier came on board, who we know who did Clash of the Titans. He did the Incredible Hulk film, which was funny. I was thinking of that film a lot during this movie because it also famously takes place in Brazil. This film is very much a sequel because Jason Momoa, his father, was Reyes from Fast 5, and this movie Fast 10 really wants to remind you that Fast 5 happened. It is constantly going back. I've never seen a film give you so many flashbacks to another movie, and that it constantly does this throughout the entire film. It will flashback to Brazil, flashback to this scene. Guess who else was there? Oh, Jason Momoa was in the scene. We just didn't see him. It was just constantly going back and forth. But in all honesty, like Shay said it, Jason Momoa is so fun to watch in this movie. He is straight up playing the Joker. He is in an entirely different film. He knows what this movie is, and he's playing it so over the top. And this really is the wildest Fast and Furious yet. But it also really struggles to know what it is. And me, who I think I'm a really big fan of the series, my love of the series really peaked with 5, where I feel like it's crazy to think now that 6 and 7 and 8 all feel kind of tame to where the series has gone since then. I was never bored watching Fast 10, but it is definitely a crazy ride. Anthony, I'd love for you to jump in.
It struggles to find an identity. I think after 10 films, it doesn't know what it wants to be anymore. With the movie, or this franchise, started off with a bunch of kids who street raced and stole DVDs off
stealing gas
or stealing DVDs from a transport truck. Now they're defining human gravity and any type of comprehension to physics, like Vin Diesel in his car.
Do you say they're defining or denying human gravity? Because they're doing all of it.
Defying
human gravity
because they are beyond it. Like, there is no scientific evidence or scientific proof that these things actually can happen in the Furious world, but they just do. It is absolutely chaotic. It is a calamity of chaos. That's like, these are the words that kind of come into my head. It's absolutely mind-boggling that a story like this, and specific, like I watched 9, like, okay, cool, it is what it is, but 10 just goes to, and I know they went to the moon in 9, but 10 is just
not to the moon. They just went to space. They
very close.
They were very close to the moon. But I know that film, or this film, is just crazy. It is absolutely crazy. Everything that you can think of a car can go through, they put it through.
These cars are built incredible, by the way. By American, clearly, because these cars will withstand bombs, fire, whatever you throw at it.
They spawn out of nowhere.
They
continuously spawn, and they're always like in perfect condition, like a GTA car.
You called your mechanic to drop it off.
I found myself constantly confused of what this story was all about. Like, I get it. Like, Jason Momoa was the villain, sure, but there was so much more, and There's so many characters in this franchise, and I respect that they try to give them all time, but that time isn't really utilized properly because they're just giving you nonsense on screen. And then this movie becomes 2.5 hours of nonsense when it could actually be a really great film when you kind of cut it down and just focus on Vin Diesel and Jason Momoa. And I think if they just focus on those two characters, it would build a better film. Like it doesn't take a great writer, a great director to see that. And at this point, in 10 films, we really don't need to know what Ludacris's character is doing, and Tyrese and
Ramsey and
Ramses?
Han.
no, Ramsey's Han, Jason Statham's in it, and then they add more characters, and like we don't need that. We know that Fast and Furious is Dominic Toretto. Give me him.
Yeah.
Give me the villain. Put them two together. I don't need everyone else. They can actually take a break. They don't have to be in this film. They can actually take some time off and just focus on these two.
And it's funny you say that because obviously tragedy would happen to Paul Walker, but it's very bizarre how they keep handling his character in this franchise, because it's always just like, oh, Brian's not here, Brian's keeping safe, Brian's with the kids, and like I get it, it's an impossible situation, but I also feel like Furious 7 was such a natural ending point that sure, if you're going to keep making these films, do it, but when you're trying to include all these characters, it's not going to work. And I look at a film series again, completely different. You look at Mission Impossible.
I was just
Mission
thinking of that too.
Impossible is a 30-plus-year-old series at this point, or 30-year-old series almost. Not every single character who has been in Mission Impossible is in every single movie. But when they do show up, or if they do get brought back, it's going to be for a story reason. Where I think the big issue that a lot of the writers are struggling with when it comes to the Fast and the Furious franchise is that they are so focused on the family. And I think leaving anyone out is where they're struggling, and they're struggling to find a reason to have all these people on screen together. There's a scene in this film where it's it's Luda, it's Tyrese, it's not, I'm going to use their character names. It's Tej, it's Roman, it's Ramses, and it's Han in like this internet
Computer shop?
cafe.
Yeah.
In a computer shop, and then there's a cameo of another actor in here. We won't spoil who it is. And then and Tej and Roman start like bickering with each other, and they always bicker, and then they get into an actual fight, and then the scene just cuts away. Nothing came of it. It was just time spent on this because you're trying to give these characters screen time. And I think that's interesting when you have this dynamic of characters where they all work together in Fast 5. They had such a great dynamic with one another, because that was basically like Ocean's 11. That was a heist film. Everyone played the role, and they did it well because they were together the entire movie. And then when they went off in separate missions, they had really great pairings. Where I feel like the Fast and Furious series is so adamant on keeping the status quo that you're never letting your characters either grow, change, develop, or even die, because we've seen multiple times in the series, if somebody dies, guess what, they're coming back. And we've seen that obviously with Letty, we've seen it with Han, and we with other characters as well too. I mean, like this is the status quo, is that they want to maintain it all the time. And I mean, and it works and it doesn't work, because you have characters that I think you really like their dynamics, but it's also just like, well, I'm getting the same Tej and Roman from Fast 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. These characters aren't changing. And I think that's what you really start to get just bored of it. I mean, at least in the MCU knows when to evolve characters. If you look at Iron Man in the first Iron Man, he's different at the end of Iron Man 1. He's different in Iron Man 2. And then as the Avengers and the other films come on, you're seeing those characters grow in different ways and become different things, where they are so set on keeping these characters exactly how they are. And then you're adding more on. You're adding Oscar winners like Rita Moreno, Charlize Theron, Brie Larson. You're giving them so much more screen time in these films.
Why was Charlize in this?
Yeah, like Charlize has been in the last 3 films, and they have no idea what to do with her. And then she's in this one with Michelle Rodriguez. They have no idea what to do with these characters. And it's interesting. As fun as I had watching this movie, I was not bored at all. I was like, my jaw was like, I was aghast watching this, of how ridiculous it was. It's a great time, don't get me wrong, but it's also like I know what I'm in for at this point with the Fast and the Furious. I'm either in the ride, I'm going in the car ride, or I got out a long time ago. But it's too bad that we're in a series that has such, one, diversity, one, such a lineage, that they are so, I think, stuck in neutral, trying to advance these characters and who they are and what they can be. I will say I really like, as predictable and probably as non-stakes as it's going to mean in the future, I do like where this film ended. And I like that it ended on a cliffhanger because it's interesting. I'm curious where it's going to go. But when you tell me that Vin Diesel is basically bulletproof in this film, I'm just wondering, I'm like, is anything ever going to really impact, because even when you're killing a character, is that going to stick? Is that going to stay? And that's unfortunate that you built this world where stakes don't matter. You could have giant spectacle, but that doesn't matter. Any situation, we know that, Vin or whoever's in the car is going to figure it out, because they will always figure it out. It doesn't matter if there's a bomb going to the Vatican or, someone stealing your son. That, Dom is going to figure it out at the end of the day. You just have to have faith. You got to have your family. And it almost comes off as a parody at this point. I'm sorry, I've been going on a long tangent here, but it almost feels like, Vin Diesel is like, I'm curious. I feel like other, like, Jason Momoa knew what this movie was, but Vin Diesel plays it with such sincerity that it almost like feels comical. And there was a lot of laughs, like Shay said, from the audience today, that I don't think people were supposed to be laughing at certain parts. Seeing like Vin and Michelle Rodriguez, or like Dom and Letty together, I don't know why our audience erupted in laughter at that when Vin Diesel picked her up and they kind of went on the bed. People were just besides themselves. I'm like, why are people laughing at this? Because it's almost played so corny in the film, and there's a lot of moments like that, and it doesn't feel genuine.
So
and
manufactured.
Then there's a lot of moments like that, and there's like, oh, of course, this person knows this person, or this person is connected to this person. There's a lot of that, and Anthony leaned over to me a couple of times, like, oh, how did they get here, or what's going on here? And I just kept saying, dude, it doesn't matter. Like it doesn't, like they're going, and they just keep wanting to tell the story. It doesn't matter what they're doing. They just want to tell the story. You're going to have a good time with this movie if you like the other Fast and the Furious films post 5 and post 6, but it's a wild time. It's a wild time.
A lot of the script is it almost feels like it was written by the AI that's in Fast 10. Like if it was almost like a real entity. Like this is
God's Eye wrote
God's
this movie.
Eye.
God's Eye. Yes.
God's Eye is back. 4 movies in a row now.
And I even mentioned it to you guys that I feel like Vin Diesel is portraying himself or embodying Jesus Christ, because there's a lot of cross references. I know it's been part of the Fast and the Furious, but at this point he can't die. We know that. And he
can't even get scratched. Not even a scratch.
A lot of the shots that show his Dom is very angelical. I don't know if you got that vibe. Like
yes,
and even like the whole Vatican thing. Like I gotta save the Vatican, and there's a lot. There is a scene where there's a lot of damage, a lot of things happen, and no one. There's a news report. No one died. I'm like, that's impossible.
Yeah, they even said that in the news report. They're like,
impossible.
It's in the trailer. It's in the trailer. We could say it. The bomb goes off in Italy.
It's impossible.
No one died. There's no way. There's no. You saw the
buildings
impact
are
of that bomb.
destroyed.
People like Letty is miles away, kilometers away from what that happened, and they're getting blown back, but nobody died apparently. No one was there that day.
And a good part of this movie, like we said, is focusing on Fast 5. Like the first 10 minutes of this movie is Fast 5.
I think the first 30, I think the 30% of this film is Fast 5.
Yeah, and it's just, it's mind-boggling because, again, you don't know where you want to go with this franchise. That's what, and we really didn't have to see that. They had to like force Samoa into this movie, and that's how they did it. I would have just rather him reveal himself as like this villain that's out for revenge. His character kind of changes from when he was in Fast 5. Did I say Samoa? I said Momoa.
No, you did. It's funny. It's funny you say that. You said Samoa, and then I'm like, yeah, they did cram Samoa into Hobbs and Shaw. They ended the movie there for some reason.
Momoa.
Mimosa.
his character changes so dramatically because he is very like Joker, Penguin, like the '89
He's very
Joker,
flamboyant villain in this, right?
flamboyant, very erogenous. Is
Yeah.
that the word, or when
Yeah.
you don't know which way you sway? Androgynous. That's the
He's
word.
fluid?
Androgynous?
Fluid. And
Yeah.
that's kind of like where he is. And I think Momoa is the best part of this movie.
Oh yeah,
But
he's
I don't.
he's giving it.
It's not a lot to really, because I feel like
It's
Momoa's
not
like,
enough.
shit, I'll just do whatever I want to do. And that's what he felt like he was doing. Like, I'll just do what I want to do. And there are parts where he's pirouetting over the friggin' cars and he's
Oh my God.
dancing and it's absolute chaos.
Dude,
And
he
he's gonna
drops
be a
Swan
good
Lake
guy.
and then Swan Lake starts playing.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Yeah.
There's I also like when you go back to the whole, Paul Walker, Brian thing, it's so much easier to just not have Mia in the movies. Jordana Brewster is not bringing anything to this film franchise except for the question of why isn't Paul Walker here? And obviously we know why he isn't, but because you keep inserting her into this film, that raises the question over and over again, and it just becomes totally not believable. Like there's a seat at the table of the barbecue, he's just not there, and then it's always like, oh, I'll tell Brian it's okay, it's all right. What's he off doing? Is he doing sales calls? Like, I don't know what's happening. It like you sunsetted that character perfectly. You didn't need Mia to come back. You could have just been totally fine. Also, I know we discussed this kind of towards the end, but I wasn't a big fan of the CG. There's some times where it looked really, really good, but there's sometimes where, and there's a moment with, I'm gonna forget the guy's name, the gentleman who plays Jack Reacher,
Alan Richardson.
and Brie Larson. They're hanging out in this green screen room
Oh,
that is
yes,
so
yes, yes.
egregious.
Dude,
It
I'm like,
looks
what
so
siphon filter
bad.
room are you guys in
It
right
looked like
now?
Cerebral.
Like, it's
Cerebral?
yeah,
Cerebro looked better.
Yeah.
Cerebro.
Cerebro.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was
Right, Cerebro?
Yeah,
Cerebro.
Cerebro.
Yeah, Cerebro. Yeah.
It just like it was
Yeah.
unreal. I
Yeah.
was aghast. And the movie,
Guys,
it
go
just,
into just a room. Just
just
go to
a
an
room.
office.
You don't need to be in the
Office
Tesseract.
room.
Like it like things are opening up so unnecessarily. They're flipping phones and always like, beep, 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 beep. Like, what is going on? Just take a deep breath. Think about what you're doing and make a fun film. I don't know. For me, it was wow.
Shay,
think
you were saying that every action is retconned right away. Like
Yes.
like right
Immediately.
away, immediately. Like no matter what, there was always like, well, I could do this, and there's never consequences. There's
No.
never consequences. Even like when that bomb explodes and people have died. No one died. But there has to be some sort of give me something to feel like, oh, there's a
Give
lot
me a
of
stake.
weight.
Yeah. Also,
in
they're
this
on the
film.
run, but they could easily get around the world, no problem. They could travel,
No
no problem.
problem.
Again, it just goes. Don't think about it. It doesn't matter.
They go
You
from
I know, but
Brazil.
you
about
can
it,
turn
know?
off your brain
Portugal.
so much
You
to the
can-
point where you're just drool coming out of your mouth.
Yeah.
Find a car.
And,
Yeah.
and this is just it like when you have a movie where nothing matters, then why does the movie matter?
Right. It's interesting. It's definitely it's something. I will say though, as someone who I think has had a love-hate relationship with this film franchise since I want to say 7 or even 8, like I'll say 8. 8 is really when things started going off the rails for me, cuz like 7 was fine. I had a really great ending, but 8, 9 and 10, I think 10 so far I like it a lot more than I did Fast 9 and Fate of the Furious. But I do wonder, I'm like, okay, you know what? How long before Jason Momoa is showing up at the barbecue? You know what I mean? It's like, we've had that with, Owen and Luke Shaw. We had that with, Charlize Theron in some capacity in this film, as we've seen in the trailers with her and Letty having to work together. It's very interesting, and it's exactly what Shay said. What stakes are there? What stakes are going to stay? What consequences are these characters going to face? Because in this film, they seem to be able to move, even though, we had to travel in different ways, whatever. They were pretty out in the open, especially Dom as well, too. There's a scene after the bomb goes off in Italy where's Dom? He's just chilling in a bar. It's like, oh, okay,
Why not?
Why not? Why? It doesn't matter.
The most dramatic bar.
It's family.
The most dramatic bar.
Yeah,
Bar
the
Yeah,
most
sequence.
dramatic
there's
part.
there's a lot that happens in this film. It's 2 hours, 2.5 hours that you're going into almost. There's a lot of reveals that happen. Again, we won't spoil it right now,
Oh yeah.
but there's a lot of reveals that happen where it's just like, man, I feel like when they were putting this together, they're like, it'd be crazy if this character's here and then this character's here.
And
You
they're
know,
like,
and we'll
film
have
it.
we have a bunch of characters who show up from throughout the franchise where it's like, why do you need to be in this right now?
Yeah.
What's your purpose in this overall film right now? Then it comes off as it not mattering. I think one of the biggest achievements, and I could get the heat for this in the comments, Infinity War somehow balanced a cast that big and did it perfectly. And Fast and the Furious, for some reason, really struggles with giving their characters anything to do other than what we've seen them do for the last 5 films. That's kind of where we are right now.
The Fast and Furious at this point is, and I don't want to say it, but they are disrespecting the Fast and Furious fan base, because this is not what the Fast and Furious is all about. It is absolutely ridiculous, and I think that's why Justin Lin left. I think he saw this and he's like, I can't fucking do this because it doesn't make fucking sense.
I wonder.
I 100%.
But he wrote this movie though, which is
I feel
like he's a writer on this film.
Yeah, but
there's
like,
no writer for this movie. There's
there's
collection of scenes.
no.
Daniel.
This movie changed many times. I feel like the rewrites were happening. I feel like Vin Diesel's like, no,
Sure.
no.
And he
I'm
may
gonna
have to
jump
get the writing
off.
credit because of he left as a director,
Right.
things like
Yeah.
that. But he also wrote 9 as well too. So
Like, 9
this is very much in line
you
with
know, the space
and-
thing, whatever.
yeah, no, but 9 was like, I think for me at least, like, have you guys watched 9 since we've seen it at the drive-in?
Yeah.
No.
This is miles better than what 9 was. 9 was like, I will never revisit that film on a rewatch of the series.
But did the story ever feel like that doesn't make sense other than the space part? Because
Constantly.
the space, you know, you could
Constantly in that movie.
like the space part, it could make sense.
Dude, Han came back from the dead in that film.
because
like-
But a lot of people come back from the dead in this
Yeah.
one. Like
No,
no
but-
spoilers.
but,
but this is just like you. I buried you. Why are you here?
No, I know, but it's like, but they got away with that because that was established in 9 already of how silly that is. That's why I feel like 10 at least has, I think, better action sequences than 9 does. 9 is a very, I went to go check to see if it was the same cinematographer. 9 was a very, like, not great looking movie. Not that this one is worlds better, but this one actually had a lot better color grading and a lot better visual effects than 9 did. But again, we're talking now about a franchise that is 3 decades old. We're struggling to tell stories, and I'm really curious now. This is going to be a 3-film finale.
What do you have left to show us? What do you have left to tell us? What
Exactly.
like when every minute of this film is as dialed to 10, literally every minute. There isn't a moment where they breathe and just kind of like, you know, take a
Full
minute.
throttle to the very end.
What more can you do? And it's to the point where it's like you need to stop. You need to just cut your loss at this point or whatever.
It's comical. It's
'cause there are
comical
people-
what Dom could do in a car now. It's
People
wild.
were coming out of this screening like, what did we just watch? And the crowd was just like confused, I think.
And I think that's where we're at, right? Where it's like people are more checking in now to see how ridiculous the film is. And it's like, but do you want to keep upping the stakes and upping the ridiculousness for people to watch? Or do you want to have a trilogy that's really going to last and be a testament of, you know, what
Yeah.
it is, right?
right. And I feel like
What were you going to say, Anthony?
I was going to say that this, you know, they're trying to create these characters into superheroes because they don't have
They are, yeah.
superheroes. But like superheroes before, like they've been established for almost 100 years. You know, like first, what, Superman came out in 1929 and
38.
1932,
8.
38, almost 100 years. And
Yeah.
from that point, like it's been growing. We always knew who Superman and Iron Man and Captain America, but like Dominic Toretto going from stealing DVDs and souping up, you know, Mitsubishi Lancers and having his Dodge, which I think like the amount of Challengers that he has and Chargers that he has,
Yeah.
He's keeping them in
there's
business.
no way that he's ruined that car because he smashed them all up. Like there's no way. There many Challengers and Chargers from that year with that engine.
In the
You know,
trailer,
they
he
always have
brings
the-
down those helicopters.
yeah, like there's
Yeah.
yeah.
It doesn't matter.
No, it
doesn't
has to
And
matter,
that's the
man.
point.
It has
And
to
that's
no,
the
no, no. I'm
point.
saying it.
No,
No, I mean
I
like,
agree,
like
though.
this. No, it does. I just mean like, oh, how did they get from here to here? It doesn't matter. How did we get to? Why is Portugal, Brazil, Rome, Italy? Like we're going. It
And the
doesn't matter.
giant text, nonstop. And I know
The
this sounds
metal
like
gun effect, yeah.
Yeah,
It's
it was to the
interesting-
point where
interesting
like
choices.
because they were jumping scene to scene so often, you were just
Yeah.
getting text on the screen for like half the film.
Yeah, it's something. Let's get to our final recommendations. We said we were going to talk 40 minutes about this movie,
And
but
we ended
here
up-
we are.
Oh,
Anthony,
God.
I'm going to get you to start us off, rev your engine, and let us know what you thought of Fast 10, and give us your recommendation.
If you're a Fast and the Furious nerd, be
Wow. Okay. Just coming at them.
like Daniel said, if you like 7 and up, then this is your Fast and the Furious Magnus Opum, I guess. But if you're just a Fast and Furious fan from from the early 2000s to 5, this is not going to be a great film. I'm going to say this is a skip it.
For myself, like Anthony said, if you've been in the car, if you've been on this journey, you know exactly what Fast 10 is going to be. For myself, I was never bored watching Fast 10. I had a time with it for sure. It's absolutely ridiculous. It has some really fun moments. There is some really comedic moments, a lot of unintentional comedic moments. But yeah, if you've been on this ride, if you like the direction that the Fast and Furious films are going posts 5, then this was probably up your wheelhouse. I'll say watch it. If you're going into this as somebody who loved 5 and saying, hey, this one's going to connect to 5, the best parts of this movie for you will be those flashbacks because it's basically just so many scenes of Fast 5 playing. But yeah, when you're 10 movies deep into a series like this, at this point, you know what you're getting into. You're either on board or you're not. So take that as what your mileage will vary for this one. Shahbaz, take us home.
Skip it. Yeah. Take it to the junkyard. Yeah. Like strip this car for parts because my God, I not a fan. I didn't like it. I didn't have a good time with it. And I'm sorry to be so negative. And I know we're trying to be positive, but like you're 10 movies in and you're not keeping me in the best of moods when I'm leaving this theater as well. I wanted to have a good time. I wanted to be reminded of 5, and I was constantly reminded of 5, how much better 5 was, how good of a movie 5 was. But this movie was just not it. You know what? If you like these guys have been saying, if you've loved it since 6, 7, 8, 9, then this is right there for you. But as a movie in general, this is not good.
We're gonna wrap this episode up. We're gonna park it. We're gonna put it to bed for a little while. Then we could talk about Fast and the Furious again in 2 years, whenever the next film comes out. Because yeah, there's definitely a big cliffhanger. We're gonna see what happens. We're gonna see what happens at the box office. So stay tuned down the road for more coverage on wherever the series is gonna go. Of course, this is the Movie Podcast. You could catch Fast 10 in theaters this Friday. I want to say thank you again to our friends at Universal Pictures Canada for inviting us to watch this film. If you want to follow us at the Movie Podcast on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Letterboxd, that'd be great. We'd love if you do that. Check out all of the incredible episodes that we have out for you right now, whether it's on YouTube, on all podcast feeds. We have so much incredible episodes for you to watch and catch up on. Check it all out. You don't want to miss any of it. That was This Time with the Movie Podcast, and we'll see you next.